Hey everyone, tonight we're going on a journey. Not to a place on any map, but into the hidden corridors of power, the smoke-filled war rooms of faith, and the scandalous, silk-draped bedrooms where history's most infamous figures lived, loved, and sometimes lost their minds. We'll walk the echoing halls of Notre Dame as flames lick at its ancient beams, sail the South China Sea under the blood-red flag of history's most feared pirate queen, witness the terrifying rise and brutal fall of the Knights Templar, and peek behind the velvet curtains of Europe's most unhinged royal courts. This isn't your textbook history. This is the real story, the messy, bizarre, and utterly human drama that shaped our world. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Get cozy, because tonight, history isn't just being told, it's being lived. Let's begin. Royal bedrooms, scandals, lust, and lunacy of European monarchs. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Because tonight, we're not visiting the throne rooms or the battlefields. Tonight, we're slipping past the guards, tiptoeing down candlelit corridors, and peeking behind the velvet curtains of history's most scandalous, unhinged, and utterly bizarre royal bedrooms. Forget the polished portraits. Forget the marble statues. Behind these gilded doors, kings and queens weren't ruling empires. They were staging soap operas, horror shows, and tragicomedies that would make modern reality TV blush. Grab your popcorn. This is Royal Bedrooms, Scandals, Lust, and Lunacy of European Monarchs. Our story begins with King John of England, John Lackland, history's worst dinner guest, and the man who made hostile takeover a family affair. Forget Magna Carta for a moment. Picture this, a king who didn't just seduce noble women, he kidnapped them, locked them in castles, charged their husbands extra taxes for the privilege. Chroniclers, even the ones who turned a blind eye to witch burnings, wrote, he was not temperate with women. Translation, he turned royal visits into open-season hunting grounds. At one point, he had 30 mistresses on official record. Not romantic, a staffing crisis. One baron refused to meet him unless his entire household was locked up first. That's not diplomacy. That's 13th century damage control. But if John was the predator, Charles VI of France, Charles the Mad, was the haunted house. Imagine your king believing he was made of glass. Yes, glass. He padded himself in quilts so he wouldn't shatter, ran screaming from mirrors, refused to bathe for fear of dissolving, and yet still found time for a royal mistress. Odette de Champ Divers, his comfort, they called her. She brushed his hair, listened to his delusions, and helped strap him into his pillow suit. He also hosted the Bal des Ardents, where nobles dressed as flammable wild men and promptly burned alive. Charles survived. His dignity, not so much. 12 children, one shattered psyche, all while wearing a crown. Then came Peter the Cruel of Castile, or Pedro the Just, depending on whether you were cuddling him or hiding under the floorboards. His great love, Maria de Padilla. So devoted was he locked up his actual queen, Blanche of Bourbon, 3 days after the wedding, because Maria had prettier hair. When Maria died, he wept 4 days. Then retroactively declared her his legal wife, just to confuse the court and justify their 4 children. But Peter's love was lethal. Mistresses who tried to leave, found in pieces. He watched executions from his balcony, lounging with a mistress. Not charming, HBO villain energy, his idea of romance. Surprise weddings, surprise divorces, surprise stabbings. Killed by his half-brother, poetic. Enter Edward II of England, less king, more tragic lead in a forbidden romance novel. His heart belonged not to his queen, Isabella of France, but to his favourites, first Piers Gaveston, Then Hugh Despencer the Younger. Piers upstaged the Queen at Edward's own coronation, dripping in more jewels than the crown itself. When nobles exiled him, Edward sulked, then brought him right back. Teenage breakup, but with crossbows. After Piers' execution, full royal meltdown. Then came Hugh, basically co-king, draped in land, titles, entire counties. Isabella, she snapped, teamed up with her own lover, invaded England, overthrew her husband. Edward, possibly murdered with a red-hot poker. Medieval revenge, rarely subtle, always theatrical. And then, Wenceslaus of Bohemia, not the good king from the carol. This one, think royal frat boy, governed from the bottom of a goblet. Hosted multi-day drinking binges where policy was decided between rounds of mead and breadstick duels. His signature move, streaking through the castle, delivering royal edicts completely naked, save for a sword belt. Clothes off for the timid, he declared. Affairs weren't scandalous, they were job interviews. Eventually, the Holy Roman Empire fired him. His own brother called him useless, undressed, unusually unconscious. He reigned for decades. His legacy, ruled like every day, was his last hangover. Of course, no royal bedroom saga is complete without Henry VIII, the man who invented a new church. Just to get a divorce, 6 wives, the rhyme. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived, Catherine of Aragon. Dumped after 20 years because no male heir, Anne Boleyn. Beheaded for adultery and possibly giving side-eye. Jane Seymour, died after giving him his precious son. Anne of Cleves, Flanders Marais, Catherine Howard. Executed for being young and bored, Catherine Parr. Survived by being smart, literate, and excellent at dodging accusations. Henry didn't just break hearts, he broke countries, bankrupted England. Ate half its livestock, turned court into a beheading buffet. Love, obsession, power, absolute, sanity, debatable. But if Henry was chaos, Francis I of France was, curated decadence, Renaissance man. Patron of Da Vinci, builder of palaces, also. France's most enthusiastic womanizer, his court, a state-funded dating app. Gentle women of the bedchamber, not ladies in waiting. Romantic shortlist, he bedded ambassadors' wives, declared French kings excellent lovers, to foreign dignitaries, his mistresses. Francois de Foix, and a pissolewed highly, whose name sounds like a medieval inside joke. Even the Holy Roman Emperor said Francis was more dangerous in the bedroom than on the battlefield. He took it as a compliment. Wars, expensive, mistresses, more so. But he wouldn't have it any other way. Then there's Alfonso XI of Castile, master of the public snub. His wife, Maria of Portugal, noble, strategic, ignored. His obsession, Leonor de Guzman, shadow queen, mother of 11 of his children, running the court, while Maria sat alone at banquets, like an unwanted centerpiece. Alfonso didn't even pretend. He retreated to Leonor's estate like a man allergic to marriage. It nearly caused a war with Portugal, what finally ended the affair. The Black Death. It took a plague to pry him away, after he died. Queen Maria had Leonor imprisoned and executed. Vengeful? Yes. Fair? Absolutely. Don't forget Philip IV of France. Philip the Fair, handsome. Yes. Hypocritical, monumentally. Outwardly pious, inwardly. Running a medieval reality show, the Tour de Nestle affair. His daughters-in-law caught in affairs. Punishment, heads shaved, titles revoked. Knights flayed and executed. Public spectacle of moral outrage. Meanwhile, rumors swirled he kept his own mistresses in the Louvre, secret rooms, diplomatic entertainment, but no one questioned the king. He also destroyed the Knights Templar, not for heresy. For their gold, moral leadership, more like moral flexibility. Sigismund of Luxembourg, Holy Roman Emperor, King of Hungary, collector of crowns and mistresses. Married to Queen Mary, technically, practically. He preferred noble women, laundresses, possibly an opera singer before opera existed. Court officials lost track. Historians suggest they started numbering them. Mistresses had private quarters, servants, one even had her own chapel. He dressed as a commoner to flirt with local women. Somehow no one noticed the entourage of servants in royal crests. Ambassadors quote, "He greets all women as equals, especially in private, a violation, or progressive, you decide." Ruled empires, launched crusades, Council of Constance, all while running Europe's most chaotic love life. And always got away with it. Louis XV of France, Louis the Beloved. Ruled, debatable, hosted an endless royal after-party. Absolutely, his masterpiece, the Parc aux Cerfs, a discreet house near Versailles for rotating mistresses, like seasonal produce, clipboard system likely involved. Madame de Pompadour ran France behind the scenes. When she lost interest in the physical, he built a second harem. Logic, keep Pompadour for brains. Keep Parc aux Cerfs for everything else. The Queen, Marie Lesciscar, ignored. Treated like antique furniture, too expensive to throw out. No longer relevant. Foreign ambassadors gossiped about the turnover rate. Not a monarchy, a brothel with better uniforms. Set the stage for his grandson, Louis XVI, who lost his head, calm as a bitch, and she wears silk. Christian VII of Denmark, less king, more royal puppet. Suffered severe mental illness, likely schizophrenia. Preferred masturbating in public, talking to his hand, riding imaginary horses down corridors. Enter his physician, Johann Friedrich Struensee, smart, ambitious, and very interested in power. And the Queen, Caroline Matilda, yes, the Queen began an affair with her husband's doctor, Christian, didn't notice, or care. Struensee wrote the laws, signed the edicts, kept Christian occupied with puppet shows. They even had a child, Europe's weirdest love triangle, one corner humming in the background. Until Christian's mother-in-law staged a coup. Struensee, tortured, executed, Caroline, exiled, Christian, gently supervised liability for the rest of his days. Constitutional crisis, or Europe's strangest rom-com. Charles II of England, the Merry Monarch, returned from exile with one mission, bring back fun and mistresses, dozens of them. Nell Gwyn, actress, sharp-tongued, called herself the Protestant whore to stand out, iconic. Barbara Palmer, Countess of Castlemaine, palace fixture, mother of multiple royal bastards, all granted titles. Charles didn't hide them, brought them to court, paid them pensions. Built a secret corridor to Whitehall so they could reach his bedroom without bothering ambassadors. Efficiency. His wife, Catherine, endured it all, bore no children. Charles reported compliment. She could not bear children, but she never gave me trouble, red flag. Or backhanded praise. He fathered at least 14 illegitimate kids, acknowledged them, threw them birthday parties. Legitimate line, childless, calmer sense of humor. Died with final words. Let not poor Nelly starve, not God bless England, just. Feed the mistress, summed him up perfectly. Eric XIV of Sweden, started so promising, tall, handsome, loved astronomy. Wrote love sonnets, also, obsessed with astrology, never made a decision without checking the stars. Proposed to Queen Elizabeth I repeatedly, she declined, politely, then firmly. Then with silence, he sent her portraits of himself. 16th century DM slide. After Elizabeth ghosted him, fell for Karen Man's daughter of a jailer, married her, crowned her queen, then, emotional breakdowns, imprisoned nobles, stabbed a guy mid-dinner party, the store murders, hearing voices, hiding from invisible enemies. Nobles staged an intervention, locked him in a castle, gave crown to his brother, spent rest of life imprisoned. Wrote love poetry to Karen, probably regretted the stabbing. Lesson: don't crown the man who thinks the moon is whispering about betrayal. And finally, Ferdinand I of Naples, cultured, efficient, brutal, his hobby, taxidermy, of humans, after executing rebellious nobles. Had them stuffed, displayed in his private black room, gave guided tour to ambassadors. This one tried to overthrow me. Expression, mid-scream. Plaque included. One guest fainted. Ferdinand found it hilarious. Yacht review, 5 stars. Deeply unsettling. Would not return without sedative. Romantically. Fathered numerous illegitimate children. Mistresses, noble women, peasants, no discretion. Banquets doubled as flirtation contests. Ambassador's note, never dined without sampling from multiple courses, political and otherwise. Ruled for decades, died in his bed. Legacy. Stable kingdom, terrifying basement, proof some kings build alliances. Others collect warning signs in glass cases. So there you have it, 15 monarchs, 15 bedrooms, 15 tales of lust, lunacy, and absolute, unapologetic power run amok. They weren't just rulers. They were walking, talking, often naked disasters, fueled by ego, hormones, and a complete disregard for boundaries. And yet, we can't look away. Because behind the crowns and the scandals, they remind us of something deeply human. That power doesn't erase weakness, it amplifies it. So next time you think history is boring, remember King John's kidnapping sprees, Charles VI's glass delusions, Henry VIII's six-wife revolving door. History isn't just dates and battles. It's drama, it's scandal, it's royally, gloriously, messily human. Sleep well. The Knights Templar. From sacred vow to fiery end, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, because tonight we step out of the royal bedrooms and into the shadows of history's most feared, most powerful, and most mysterious brotherhood. Forget the myths, forget the movies, forget the conspiracy theories of for now. This is the true story of the Knights Templar, not as secret keepers of the Holy Grail, but as 9 desperate men who made a vow in the dust of a broken Jerusalem. Not as bankers in monks' robes, but as warriors who turned faith into a weapon. And not as martyrs to a corrupt king, but as the architects of their own terrifying, unstoppable rise, and their brutal, fiery fall. This is a story of sacred oaths and shattered trust, of unimaginable wealth and unbearable torture, of a brotherhood that conquered empires, only to be destroyed by a single, jealous king. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, let's begin. The humble origins 1119, the year is 1119. The First Crusade is a fading memory. The streets of Jerusalem, once bathed in Christian blood, now run with the sweat of pilgrims. And the fear of bandits, outside the holy city's walls. The roads are death traps, Muslim raiders, desert outlaws, mercenaries with no loyalty. They prey on the faithful. Men, women, children, all a fair game. To travel to the Holy Sepulchre is to gamble with your life. And into this chaos steps a knight named Hugh de Payens. He is not a king, not a lord, just a man with 8 companions. Together, they make a vow, not to a crown, not to a country, to God. They pledge to protect the pilgrims with their swords, with their lives. They take the vows of monks, poverty, chastity, obedience. No wives, no gold, no lands, just horses, swords, and an unbreakable faith. King Baldwin II, grateful for any help, gives them quarters on the Temple Mount, the ruins of Solomon's temple. From that sacred, haunted ground, they take their name. the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. The Knights Templar, for 9 long years, they are nobodies. A ragged band of holy misfits. They borrow armor, share war horses, train like men possessed. They live like beggars, and fight like demons, and slowly, their legend begins to spread. Papal recognition and rise to power. 1129. This strange blend of monk and warrior catches the eye of Bernard of Clairvaux, the most powerful abbot in Christendom. A spiritual rock star. When he speaks, popes listen. Bernard sees something divine in these men. At the Council of Troyes in 1129, he drafts their official rule, a rigid, brutal code of monastic and martial discipline. He calls them the new knighthood, holy, fearless, unstoppable, with Bernard's blessing. And the Pope's seal. The Templars are no longer just a desperate band. They are a religious order, with divine sanction, donations pour in. Young nobles abandon castles and comfort to join their ranks, from the dirt of Jerusalem. The Templars rise, holy, hungry, and now officially unstoppable. But they have no idea that their greatest blessing, their independence from kings, will one day mark them for death. 3. The warrior monks with their white mantles and blood-red crosses stitched upon them. The Templars are no longer monks with swords. They are the shock troops of Christendom. The Crusader states, fragile, frightened Christian outposts, are under constant siege, and the Templars are the wall that holds back the tide. Their code is simple, brutal, absolute, never retreat, unless outnumbered 3 to 1. No ransoms, no mercy, no fear. They train daily. Fight with fanatical discipline. Believe that death in battle is the highest honor. While other knights fight for plunder, the Templars fight with terrifying righteousness. They are God's fury, on horseback, at the Second Crusade, while lords bicker and fail. The Templars carve through enemy lines like divine reapers. Their charges become legend. It's not just skill, it's reputation. Muslim commanders scan battlefields, whispering, the white mantles, the red crosses. Those devils, they don't just fight, they fortify. Across the Holy Land, they build an iron web of castles, Safed, Tortosa, the mighty crack des Chevaliers, not ornamental estates. Military fortresses, thick walls, trap-laden gates. Water systems for year-long sieges. When armies flee, the Templars stay. To buy time, to die, their allegiance, not to kings, not to emperors, only to the Pope. A king cannot command them. A baron cannot bribe them. Only the Grand Master, chosen from within, can give the order to fight or to stand down. They are sovereign in spirit. Even as they bleed for the cross, they are building a myth, holy to some, ominous to others, and their popularity only grows afore. The bankers of Christendom, they began with borrowed armor and the vow of poverty, but within a century, the Knights Templar aren't just warriors, they are the world's most trusted financial institution. War made them rich, faith made them trusted, necessity made them brilliant. It started with donations. Nobles give them land, gold, livestock, entire villages. The Templars don't hoard it, they manage it. They build commanderies, agricultural estates, across Europe, run like efficient businesses. Grain, livestock, taxes, tithes, all accounted for. A monk in England can send money to fund a battle in Jerusalem. Within weeks, unheard of. Then, the banking system. A nobleman heading east doesn't need to risk a chest of coins. He deposits funds with the Templars in Paris, receives a coded letter, and withdraws the same amount in ochre. One of the earliest forms of international banking. Templars charge modest fees, keep meticulous records, never default. They become the Swiss banks of the medieval world. Centuries before Switzerland exists, their clients, kings, queens, bishops, merchants, they safeguard the French crown jewels, manage papal finances, fund crusades, ransom prisoners, they even lend money to the very monarchs who will later try to destroy them. They don't flaunt their wealth. Churches are plain, vestments are humble. But beneath that austerity, an empire of ledgers, vaults, armored wagons, an invisible hand that touches nearly every economy in Europe. And yet, they refuse to call themselves bankers. We are monks, they say. Everything we do is in service of God, but the more gold they move, the more enemies they make. Kings grow nervous. They owe the Templars fortunes and cannot control them. What began as a mission to defend pilgrims has evolved into something stranger: warriors with no battlefield, monks with no monastery, bankers with no kingdom. And while their coffers grow heavier, so does the weight of suspicion, power without oversight. That's when kings start sharpening knives. 8. Dissolution and execution, 1312-1314 by 1312. The end is inevitable. The Knights Templar, once the most powerful military order in Christendom, are broken men in dark cells. Their confessions, wrenched out under torture, are used as justification for what comes next. And what comes next is dissolution under intense pressure from King Philip IV. Pope Clement V formally disbands the Templar order at the Council of Vienne. The papal bull, Vox in Excelso, strips them of their titles, their holdings, their very identity. Officially, the Templars are no more. The Holy See declares it an act of mercy, not conviction, but a necessary step to prevent further scandal. In reality, it is a political execution, dressed in ecclesiastical robes. The order's properties are transferred to the Knights Hospitaller, but not everything makes it there. Much of the Templars' wealth, treasures, ledgers, and rumoured relics simply vanish. Some claim it was hidden. Others believe it was quietly absorbed. Whatever the case, the Templars' vast financial empire dissolves like smoke, leaving behind only questions. But the final act has not yet played. In 1314, Grand Master Jacques de Mallet, who has spent 7 long years in prison, is led out to a scaffold in Paris. He is to be executed. Alongside Geoffroy de Charny, another senior Templar, both have recanted their confessions, insisting until the end that the order was innocent, and for that defiance, they will burn. They are tied to a wooden stake on a small island in the Seine. As the flames rise, de Molay shouts through the smoke. He calls on God to judge those who have condemned him. According to legend, he curses both King Philip and Pope Clement. He declares they will die within the year, and they do. Clement succumbs to illness within a month. Philip follows later that year, suddenly, and without warning. Some whisper it is divine justice, others call it coincidence. But the myth sticks. The Templars had died, cursing their killers, and the heavens had listened. With that, the last true voice of the Knights Templar is silenced. In fire, their story ended, not in battle, but in betrayal, torture, and flame. Yet, even as they were erased from the map, their legend was just beginning to take root. The enduring legend, the fires of the Templar executions died out, but the embers of their legend burned hotter than ever. With the order disbanded, their castles seized, and their leaders executed, it seemed their story was over. But something strange happened. Instead of fading from memory, the Knights Templar transformed from disgraced monks into eternal symbols of mystery and power. The secrecy that had once protected them now fed rumors. What happened to their treasure? Where were their scrolls, their relics, their holy knowledge? Some believed they had spirited away the Holy Grail before their arrest. Others whispered they had hidden the Ark of the Covenant or guarded descendants of Jesus himself. There was no proof, just shadows. But in the medieval world, shadows were enough. Then came the idea that the Templars had survived. Underground, though officially disbanded, Many former Templars quietly blended into society. Some joined other monastic orders, some became mercenaries, but others, legend claimed, went secret. They formed hidden brotherhoods, preserving their rituals and relics in silence. Biding their time, centuries later, those stories mutated into myths. The Templars were credited, or blamed, for everything. The construction of Gothic cathedrals, the founding of Freemasonry. Conspiracy theories sprouted like weeds. That the Templars controlled banks, thrones, revolutions. That they had never truly been defeated, just disguised. That behind every major event in history, some hidden hand, in a white mantle, guided the outcome. Pop culture didn't help. The Templars showed up in books, games, films, sometimes as heroes, other times as villains. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code turned them into custodians of holy bloodlines. Assassin's Creed made them a global cabal, pulling the strings of civilization. Each retelling distorted the truth, but fed the fascination. In reality, the Templars were flesh and blood. Brave, yes. Flawed, certainly. Religious warriors who tried to mix monastic vows with the violence of war and paid the price, but myths endure because they offer something history often can't: answers, meaning, mystery. The real Templars died on scaffolds and in dungeons, but the mythological Templars, they still ride in the imagination, eternal, armored, cloaked in secrecy. And in that sense, Philip the Fair failed. He destroyed their bodies, but their legend, untouchable. More than 7 centuries have passed since the last Grand Master was burned alive on the banks of the Seine, but the Red Cross still lingers in literature, in architecture, in symbols carved into old stone, and whispered through conspiracy theories. The Templars may be gone, but their legacy, anything but dead. They were more than just warriors, they were innovators. In an age when kings ruled by divine right, and banking was seen as a sin, the Templars created a pan-European network of finance, logistics, and diplomacy. Their letters of credit, they prefigured modern checks, their commanderies. They function like regional branches of a multinational corporation. They were an early blueprint for globalization, built not with stock markets, but with swords and sacred vows. Militarily, they redefined what it meant to be a knight. Before the Templars, chivalry was a personal code, flexible, often ignored. The Templars turned it into an institution, a discipline enforced with brutal consistency. They weren't lone champions, jousting for glory. They were units, trained like modern special forces, willing to die for an abstract ideal. And die, they did, often in silence, sometimes in vain, but never without impact culturally. They changed how the West viewed religion and warfare. The concept of the warrior monk challenged the notion that holiness and violence were incompatible. They showed that belief could be weaponized, not just in battle, but in politics, finance, and propaganda. And when they fell, it was that same belief in their supposed heresy that justified their destruction. Their fall also served as a cautionary tale. The Templars became a symbol of unchecked power, answerable to no one, protected by the Pope, richer than kings. Their downfall exposed the fragility of institutions, even those wrapped in divine authority. It was a medieval version of a corporate takedown, executed not by shareholders, but by royalty and Rome today. Their image is more myth than man, but myth shaped memory. And the memory of the Templars, courageous, flawed, betrayed, reminds us that history isn't just written in victories, sometimes it's etched in ash. So the next time you see a red cross on white cloth, remember, it was once worn by men who believed they were doing God's work, until politics, ambition, and fear decided otherwise, and in that clash of steel, gold, and fire, their legend was born. They began as 9 poor knights In the dust of Jerusalem, they rose to command empires and banks. They fell to the greed of a king and the silence of a pope, and yet they never truly died, because some fires don't destroy, they ignite, and the flame of the Templar still burns in our books, in our games, in our darkest, most beautiful conspiracies. Sleep well, Notre Dame de Paris, a stone hymn through the ages. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, because tonight we leave behind the crashing waves of pirate queens and the smouldering pyres of fallen knights. Tonight we walk into silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of awe, of stone that sings, of light that prays, of a building that has watched over a city for nearly 900 years, through coronations and revolutions, through wars and whispers, through fire and resurrection. This is the story of Notre Dame de Paris, not just a cathedral, a living chronicle, a stone hymn carved across centuries, a monument that has been crowned, desecrated, forgotten, resurrected, burned, and reborn. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, let's begin. The vision of Bishop Maurice de Sully, 1160. The year is 1160. Paris is no longer a muddy river town. It is growing, swelling with scholars, merchants, pilgrims. The University of Paris is rising. The Seine hums with trade, and at the heart of it all, a crumbling, unremarkable church, Saint Etienne. Bishop Maurice de Sully stands before it and dreams bigger, not of renovation, of replacement. He envisions a cathedral so vast, so luminous, so heavenly. It will humble kings and lift the souls of beggars. Not Romanesque gloom, but Gothic glory. Not thick walls and dim light, but soaring arches and stained glass sunbeams. He dedicates it to the Virgin Mary, Notre Dame, Our Lady. This will not be a house for God. It will be a conversation with God, a stone prayer rising from the earth. And Maurice, he will spend the rest of his life making it real, too, laying the first stone. 1163, April 1163. Spring air, crowds gather on the Arc de la Cité. Pope Alexander III himself is here, laying the first stone, not with pomp, but with solemnity. This is not just construction, it is consecration. The work begins at the East End, the choir, where priests will chant, where relics will rest, where heaven will touch earth. There are no cranes, no blueprints in the modern sense. Just faith and force, stonemasons, anonymous, nameless, haul limestone from quarries miles away. Carpenters shape scaffolding that scrapes the clouds. Blacksmiths forge tools that will carve angels from rock. Generations will pass before this dream is complete. Fathers will teach sons the curve of an arch, the angle of a buttress, the patience of a saint. They will die, never seeing the towers finished, but they will smile, knowing their hands helped build eternity. 3. Revolutionizing architecture. The Gothic style, what rises from the earth, is not just stone, it is revolution. The old Romanesque style, thick walls, small windows, heavy shadows, is cast aside. In its place, something lighter, something higher, pointed arches, not for beauty, but for physics. They channel weight downward, not outward. Ribbed vaults, not decoration, but engineering. They turn ceilings into lace, strong enough to hold up heaven. And the light, oh, the light. Walls grow thinner, windows grow wider, not to let in air, but to let in divinity. Sunlight, filtered through stained glass, becomes scripture. Red for blood, blue for a heaven, gold for glory. The cathedral doesn't just tell stories of saints and sinners, it paints them in light. This is not architecture. This is alchemy, turning stone into soul. 4. Defying gravity. the flying buttress, but there's a problem. The higher the vaults climb, the more they push outward against the walls, threatening to burst the cathedral open. Like an overfilled wineskin, the old solution: thicker walls, smaller windows, darkness, Maurice de Sully's dream. Light, height, air. So the masons do something unthinkable. They reach outside. They build arms of stone, arched, elegant, skeletal, that leap from the upper walls down to massive piers standing apart from the building. Flying buttresses, to critics, ugly, unnecessary, an architectural crutch. To the builders, genius. These stone wings brace the cathedral. They catch the outward thrust and hurl it into the earth. Suddenly, the walls are free to soar, free to hold windows, not just windows, rose windows. Vast wheels of colored glass, 10 meters across, depicting creation, apocalypse, the Virgin, the saints. Light doesn't just enter Notre Dame. It dances. The flying buttress turns necessity into poetry. The iconic west facade and twin towers by the 1220s. The face of Notre Dame begins to rise. The west facade, not an entrance, a judgment. Towering doors, portals to salvation and damnation above them. The gallery of kings minus 28 statues of Judah's monarchs. Watching, silent, eternal. They will be mistaken for French kings and beheaded centuries later, but that is a story for another time. At the center, the portal of the Last Judgment. Christ, seated in glory, angels blowing trumpets, souls rising or falling to the illiterate masses. This is not art, it is doctrine. Enter here and know your fate. Flanking the portal, 2 towers, massive, square, crownless. They were never meant to have spires. Their power is in their weight, their stillness, their entrance. By 1250, the facade is complete. Paris looks up and sees not a building, but a monument to the divine, VI, completing the heart, the nave, transept, and choir inside. The soul of Notre Dame takes shape. The nave, vast, echoing, a forest of stone columns rising like tree trunks toward heaven. The transept, the arms of the cross, stretching north and south. Here, the rose windows bloom. North, cool blues, purples. The Old Testament, south, fiery reds, golds. The new, light doesn't just illuminate, it teaches. The choir, where priests chant, where relics rest, where kings kneel. This is the Sacred Heart, the space where heaven and earth meet. By 1300, the interior is nearly complete. The bones of the cathedral are whole, but it still lacks a crown. The crown, the original spire and gargoyles. They build it at the crossing, where nave and transept embrace. A spire, not of stone, but of oak, clad in lead, reaching toward the clouds, a needle, stitching earth to sky, and beneath it, the gargoyles, grotesque, grinning, terrifying, not just decoration, function. They are water spouts, channeling rain from the roof, away from the stone, but also a symbolism, guardians, wardens against evil. Perched high above Paris, watching, waiting, and beside them, the chimeras, creatures of nightmare and myth. Part lion, part goat, part demon. They do not drain water. They haunt, reminding all below that sin is always watching. By 1345, nearly 200 years after the first stone was laid, Notre Dame is complete, a miracle, carved in limestone. 8th, completion and centuries of glory. By 1345, for the next 400 years, Notre Dame reigns. It is not just a church. It is the heart of France. Kings are crowned here. Queens are married here. Generals kneel here before war. Relics, the crown of thorns, a fragment of the true cross, draw pilgrims from across Europe. The great organ thunders, the choir soars, bells ring 4 births and for victories. Notre Dame is more than stone. It is memory. It is identity. It is the soul of a nation. The desecration, the French Revolution 1789 to 1799. Then comes the storm, 1789, the Revolution. Notre Dame, symbol of monarchy, of church, of old power, becomes a target. Statues of the kings of Judah, mistaken for French kings, beheaded, altars smashed, relics scattered, all lost. The great bells melted into cannon. The cathedral is deconsecrated, renamed Temple of Reason, used for festivals, speeches, even a wine warehouse. The spire rotted, dismantled, gargoyles fall or are torn down. The nave smells of oak barrels, not incense. Paris' heart is hollowed. Notre Dame is not destroyed. It is a forgotten resurrection. Victor Hugo and the 19th century restoration by the 1830s. The cathedral is a ruin, crumbling, leaking, rats in the crypt. Parisians walk past without a glance. Some whisper, tear it down. Build something modern. Then, a novel, Notre Dame de Paris, by Victor Hugo. Not just a love story. A plea through the hunchback Quasimodo. Hugo makes the cathedral a character, wounded, misunderstood, beautiful. The public listens, outrage, petitions, donations. In 1844, King Louis-Philippe orders restoration. Architects Eugene Viollet-le-Duc and Jean-Baptiste Lassis take charge. They rebuild the Gallery of Kings. They carve new gargoyles. Fiercer, stranger, more alive. And the spire. Viollet-le-Duc designs a new one, taller, grander, adorned with copper apostles. And a rooster at its peak, at 96 meters. It becomes the icon, the silhouette of Paris. Notre Dame is reborn. 11. The 2019 Fire and Modern Resurrection. April 15, 2019. Evening, a fire breaks out. Beneath the roof, the forest, the 13th century oak beams, catches. Flames explode. The spire, Viollet-le-Duc's masterpiece, twists, cracks, unfolds. A gasp ripples across the world. Millions watch, live, as a piece of history vanishes in smoke. The roof gone, the vaults cracked but holding, the rose windows saved, the relics rescued, the towers still standing. Notre Dame is wounded, but not dead. Within hours, pledges pour in, billions raised. Craftsmen volunteer. The world mourns and vows. We will rebuild, not as a museum, not as a relic, but as a living cathedral. A resurrected hymn. Stone by stone, beam by beam, prayer by prayer. She was born from a bishop's dream, built by nameless hands, crowned by kings, beheaded by revolution, resurrected by a novelist, burned in front of the world. And yet, she endures. Notre Dame de Paris is not stone. She's memory. She's faith. She's the unbroken song of a city that refuses to let beauty die. Her spire will rise again. Her bells will ring again. Her light will dance again, because some hymns are written not in notes, but in stone, and stone remembers. Sleep well. Qing Shi, the pirate queen who commanded the South China Sea, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, because tonight we sail beyond the palaces of Europe, beyond the stone cathedrals and the smouldering pyres of fallen knights. Tonight we journey to the South China Sea, where the waves whisper secrets, and the most feared sovereign who ever ruled them was a woman, not a queen by birth, not a warrior by training. She was born with no name, no title, no future, just a girl on a floating brothel in the shadow of Canton, and yet she would rise to command the largest pirate fleet in human history. 70,000 men, 1,800 ships, An empire built on salt, steel, and sheer, unbreakable will. She didn't ask for power, she took it. She didn't beg for mercy, she dictated terms. And when the greatest empire on earth came to destroy her, she didn't fight to the death. She sat down and negotiated her victory. This is the story of Qingxia, the pirate queen, the undefeated. The woman who turned the sea into her throne and walked away richer than any king. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, let's set sail. From flower boat to pirate bride. The year is 1775. The place, Guangdong Province, China. A girl is born. No one records her name. No one thinks she matter. She grows up poor, powerless, destined for invisibility. By her teens, she's working on a flower boat, a floating brothel drifting along the Pearl River Delta. These weren't pleasure barges for tourists. They were grim, pragmatic places where merchants, sailors, and yes, pirates came to drink, gamble, and forget. And she listened. While others served wine, she served silence and absorbed secrets. She learned who owed whom, who feared whom, who commanded which ship, who had gold, and who had ambition. She became more than a courtesan. She became an information broker, a shadow diplomat, a woman who knew how to make men talk, and then how to use what they said. Then, he walked in. Zheng, pirate lord, commander of the Red Flag Fleet, one of the most feared pirate factions in the South China Sea. Ruthless, charismatic, powerful, he saw her, not as a girl to be used, but as a force to be partnered with. He proposed marriage, and she didn't just say yes. She negotiated. No dowry, no obedience, no subservience. She demanded joint command of his fleet, equal say in strategy, equal share in plunder, equal authority over every captain, every ship, every raid. Zheng Yi agreed, whether out of love, respect, or sheer tactical brilliance. He knew she was no ornament, she was an asset. In 1801, they married, not as lord and lady, as co-sovereigns of the sea. She took his name, Yongyi Sao, wife of Zheng Yi, but history would remember her by the power she wielded, not the man she married. 2. Ascension to power 1807. For 6 years, she learned, she watched, she planned. While Zheng Yi sailed, she managed alliances, logistics, intelligence, discipline. She embedded herself in the pirate hierarchy, not as a figurehead, but as its architect. Then, in 1807, fate handed her the throne. Zheng Yi died. Some say in battle, others, in a typhoon. The sea doesn't give up its secrets easily. The fleet expected chaos, a power vacuum, a feeding frenzy of rival captains. What they got was a queen. Qingxia didn't mourn in silence, she moved. She seized control of the Red Flag Fleet, not with a sword, but with strategy. She married Zheng Yi's adopted son, Zhong Bao, a brilliant, ruthless commander in his own right. Not for love, for loyalty, to bind the military arm of the fleet to her rule. She didn't ask for allegiance. She commanded it. Any captain who refused vanished, or worse, within months, the whisper stopped. The Red Flag Fleet didn't fracture, it multiplied, and at its heart, a woman who had risen from the brothels of Canton to become the most powerful pirate on earth. IV, the pirate code, law of the sea. Chaos is easy. Order, that's power. And Qingxia understood power better than any admiral, any emperor, any pirate who came before her. She didn't just command loyalty, she engineered it. With the most brutal, brilliant, and effective pirate code the world has ever seen. This wasn't a list of suggestions, it was law, written, enforced, feared. Rule 1. All loot belongs to the fleet. Steal from the common treasury. Death. Rule 2. Bring a female captive aboard. You are responsible for her safety. Rape her. Beheading. Rule 3. Desert the fleet. Your ears are cut off. You are paraded before the crew. Then, execution. Rule 4. Disobey orders in battle. Flogging. Cowardice. Death. Rule 5. Lose your ship in battle. Death. Unless the entire crew can vouch you fought bravely. But here's the genius. She didn't just punish, she rewarded. Every pirate got 20% of what he seized. The rest went into the communal fund, used to care for widows, repair ships, bribe officials, fund future raids. She created stakeholders, men who weren't just raiding for today, but investing in tomorrow. She allowed prisoners to join her fleet, if they swore loyalty to her code. Many did, because under Qing Shi, piracy wasn't a death sentence. It was a career, stable, profitable, respected. She didn't break men. She banned them, with gold, with fear, with fairness, and with that code, she turned a mob of outlaws into the most disciplined navy on earth. Battling empires, the Qing dynasty noticed. How could they not? Their trade routes, paralyzed. Their coastal towns, paying tribute to a woman. Their navy, humiliated. In 1808, they sent their fleets to crush her. They failed again and again. And again, Qing Shi didn't just fight. She outhauled them. She knew the waters like the lines on her palm. Shallow coves, hidden channels, monsoon winds. She lured Qing warships into ambushes, trapped them in narrow straits, boarded them under cover of storm. She didn't lose ships, she captured them, and added them to her fleet. The Qing, desperate, called in the Portuguese. The British, foreign navies with cannons and discipline. They, too, failed. One Portuguese fleet, annihilated. A British squadron, outmaneuvered, outgunned, sent limping home. Qing Shi didn't just defeat navies, she embarrassed empires. While Qing admirals bickered and foreign captains cursed the tides, she ruled the waves, unbeaten, untouchable, undefeated. The ultimate negotiation, surrender on her terms 1810. By 1810, she had won, but she was no fool. War is expensive, even for a pirate queen. Her fleet was vast, but stretched thin, supplies dwindling. Alliances fraying, she could fight forever. But why? She had already proven she could destroy empires. Now, she would prove she could outsmart them. She sent word to the Qing government, not to surrender, to negotiate. She sailed into Guangzhou, not in chains, but in triumph, surrounded by her bodyguard. Flying the red flag, she laid out her terms: amnesty for every pirate under her command, minus 17,000 men, women, children. The right to keep all her wealth, a military commission for her husband, Zhong Bao, in the Qing Navy, no trials, no executions, no confiscations. The Qing agreed. On April 18, 1810, Qing Shi led her fleet into harbor, not as prisoners, as victors. Over 200 ships surrendered, weapons laid down, flags lowered, not a single drop of blood spilled. She didn't lose. She retired, on her terms. The greatest pirate surrender in history. No, the greatest power play. 7. Life after piracy. The businesswoman, she didn't fade into obscurity. She opened a gambling house, in Canton, right under the nose of the Qing government. She ran an opium smuggling ring, technically illegal, but no one dared stop her. She moved in elite circles, advised merchants, consulted on maritime affairs. Her husband, Zhong Bao, became a Qing naval captain, hunting pirates. The irony, she probably gave him tips. She raised a family, lived in comfort, died. Not in battle, not in prison, but in her bed. In 1844, at the age of 69, rich, respected, free, she didn't need redemption. She never asked for it. She lived by her own rules. and died by none but her own. 8. Legacy of the pirate queen. History forgot her, not because she was small, but because she was too large to fit, too powerful, too female, too Chinese. Western tales glorified pirates with peg legs and parrots, men who died screaming on the gallows. Qing Shi. She didn't die screaming. She died smiling. She didn't lose her head. She kept her fortune. She didn't beg for mercy. She made empires bargain for peace. She remains the most successful pirate in history. Largest fleet, greatest territorial control, most disciplined force, and the only one to walk away undefeated. Today, you won't find statues of her in public squares. No blockbuster films, no theme park rides. But in the ports of Guangdong, in the whispers of old sailors, in the hearts of women who refuse to be silenced, she is remembered, not as a myth, as a warning. To empires, to men, to anyone who thinks power belongs to the born, the blessed, the male, Qing Shi proves otherwise. She was born with nothing. She took everything. And when the world tried to take it back, she sat down and made them sign it over. She didn't wear a crown. She didn't need to. The sea was her throne, the waves her court, and her name, Qing Shi, the pirate queen, the woman who ruled the South China Sea and never, ever bowed. Music swells, a fusion of traditional Chinese strings and deep, rolling ocean drums, then fades into the sound of waves. She began as a nameless girl on a flower boat. She ended as the sovereign of 1,800 ships. She didn't inherit power. She invented it. And in a world that tried to erase her, her legend sails on. Sleep well. And so we closed the royal bedroom door, not with a sigh, but with a smirk. These weren't just kings and queens. They were walking, talking, orphan naked disasters, fueled by ego, hormones, and a complete disregard for boundaries. They kidnapped noble women, believed they were made of glass, turned castles into brothels, and taxidermied their enemies for fun. They didn't just break hearts, they broke countries, bankrupted treasuries, rewrote religions, just to get a date. And yet, we can't look away. Because behind the crowns and the scandals, they remind us of something deeply human. That power doesn't erase weakness, it amplifies it. So next time you think history is boring, remember King John's hostage mistresses, Charles VI's pillow suit, Henry VIII's beheading buffet. History isn't just dates and battles. It's drama, it's scandal. It's royally, gloriously, messily human. Sleep well, and maybe lock your doors.